He was a poor single dad, the kind the world rarely noticed unless he was in the way. Life had carved deep lines into his face long before his age ever could. Every morning, he woke before the sun, packing a simple lunch for his young daughter, tying her shoelaces with hands rough from years of labor, and whispering promises he prayed he could keep. Her mother had passed away suddenly years ago, leaving behind silence, grief, and a responsibility he never ran from, even when it crushed him. He worked multiple jobs that barely paid enough, moving through the city like a shadow, unseen and unheard, surviving on grit and love. That evening, everything felt heavier than usual. His daughter was sick, medicine was expensive, and his phone battery was dying after hours of job hunting. He had just received a message confirming a ride he could barely afford, and when a sleek black car stopped in front of him, he didn't hesitate. He opened the door, apologized to no one in particular for being late, and slid into the back seat, water dripping from his jacket onto the leather beneath him. He never noticed the subtle scent of expensive perfume or the quiet hum of power that lived inside that vehicle. In the front seat sat a woman who ruled boardrooms with the same calm precision she wore tailored suits. She was a billionaire CEO, a name whispered in financial headlines and admired from afar. Yet that night, she was exhausted, drained from endless meetings, lawsuits, and decisions that affected thousands of lives. She had asked her driver to stop for a moment so she could breathe, but before she could react, fate had already taken the wheel. As the car moved, silence stretched between them, thick but not uncomfortable. She glanced at the rearview mirror and noticed his eyes, tired yet gentle, holding a depth she rarely saw in the people around her. He wasn't glued to a phone or demanding attention. He simply sat there, shoulders slumped, as if the world had pressed down on him for far too long. Something about that quiet presence unsettled her in a way no corporate challenge ever had. Minutes passed before realization struck him like a sudden jolt. The route was wrong, too smooth, too quiet. Panic crept into his chest as he finally looked around and understood his mistake. His heart raced, not from fear of danger, but from embarrassment and the shame of being out of place, as he often felt in life. He tried to explain himself in a rush of apologies, expecting anger or dismissal. Instead, what he encountered was calm curiosity. The woman listened, truly listened, as he explained his situation, his daughter waiting at home, his struggle to make ends meet. He didn't ask for sympathy, his words carried the weight of someone who had accepted hardship as a daily companion. That honesty, raw and unpolished, pierced through the walls she had built around herself for years. She told him to relax and assured him he wasn't in trouble. The car continued forward, but something had shifted. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about profit margins or quarterly goals. She was thinking about a man who carried the world on his back without complaint. She learned about his late wife, his daughter's laugh, and the small dreams he had buried under survival. Each detail etched itself into her heart, leaving marks she couldn't ignore. As rain softened into a drizzle, she made a decision that surprised even herself. She offered to take him home. When they arrived, the contrast between their worlds became painfully clear. His building was old, its paint peeling like forgotten promises. Yet inside, warmth lived in the form of a small child sleeping peacefully, medicine bottles neatly lined beside her bed, and drawings taped proudly to the walls. Love lived there, thick and undeniable. The woman felt something tighten in her chest. She had penthouses, art collections, and numbers in accounts that could buy anything. Yet she had never known this kind of quiet, selfless devotion. She left that night changed, carrying his story with her like a fragile treasure. Days passed, but she couldn't forget him. In meetings, her mind drifted. At night, silence felt louder. Against all logic, she arranged to see him again, not as a CEO, but as a woman curious about a man who reminded her of what life looked like beyond glass towers. Their worlds collided slowly, awkwardly, beautifully. He struggled with pride, unsure why someone like her would care. He was used to being overlooked, not sought after. Yet she persisted, not with grand gestures, but with consistency. She helped quietly, offering opportunities rather than handouts, respect rather than pity. She saw his intelligence, his resilience, and the potential buried beneath years of exhaustion. Challenges didn't disappear overnight. Society's judgment weighed heavily on them. He battled insecurity, haunted by the fear of not being enough. She faced criticism from those who questioned her choices, who saw him as a liability rather than a human being. Yet through every obstacle, they found strength in shared vulnerability. The turning point came when his daughter fell seriously ill. Fear threatened to consume him as hospital bills piled up, and old feelings of helplessness resurfaced. This time, he wasn't alone. She stood beside him, not as a savior, but as a partner. Watching him hold his daughter's hand through sleepless nights, she realized love wasn't about power or wealth, but presence. The child recovered, laughter returning to the small apartment like sunlight breaking through clouds. In that moment, something unspoken settled between them. They had become each other's safe place. He grew, not because she changed him, but because she believed in him. He found better work, regained confidence, and slowly stepped into a future he once thought impossible. She softened, learning to rest, to feel, to live beyond numbers and expectations. Together, they rewrote the stories they had been told about who they were allowed to love.